Hi, it's Nell and welcome to my patio. Thank you for joining me. This is all about growing an arrowhead plant. So stick around for those care tips. So I upload videos on a regular basis here on YouTube, usually once a week, sometimes twice, but usually once. All about gardening, plants, house plants. I seem to be on sort of a houseplant roll these days, so have a lot on those. Succulents, bromeliads, pruning, repotting, all that good stuff. So if you like videos like that and you like to learn all about gardening, be sure to subscribe. There's also a lot of videos in the archives for you to check out. Yes, summer has arrived here in Tucson. I have the curtains up to filter out a little bit of the sun coming in so the fleshy succulents don't burn. The things we do for our plants. Speaking of plants, the arrowhead plant also goes by arrowhead vine. Its genus is Syngonium, and it's also called Nephitis. So those are a few other names for it in case you aren't familiar with arrowhead plant. And I'm going to skim over these points. I may actually not cover everything because I try to keep the videos a little bit shorter. I do a blog post to go along with all of my videos, and the care ones are usually at least 2,000 words long, so I write a nice beefy post. So if you are really interested in this plant, be sure to check the link below about the care of it, because there will be more details there waiting for you. So here are some plants that are in the same family as the beautiful arrowhead plant. That is the Raceae family. There's an Aglaonema. There's a Pothos. Behind is the Anthurium. Yes, my Anthurium is still in bloom, even though it's very warm. And behind that is the Monstera Bright Light. I don't know if it's Bright Light or Bright Lights. I'm going to have to check that out. But this crazy Monstera has gotten so big. So anyway, those are some of the fine plants that share the same family as the arrowhead. So the first point is how this plant is used. It's very commonly used in dish gardens. It's used as a tabletop plant and also as a hanging plant. Now that being said, mine is on the full side here. So I keep it on the floor because I like to look down on the foliage, but it's typically not sold as a floor plant, more of a hanging plant or a tabletop plant. So size, they are most commonly sold in 4-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, and 10-inch pots. When you get into the 6-inch, the 8-inch, and the 10-inch, you can also get them in a hanging pot also. They're sold both ways. Oh, and I just want to tell you, if you hear some buzzing in the background, it is the cicadas. They are around when the weather gets really warm and before the monsoons start, and I like to film outside, so I just have to put up with it. And there are also some doves in the background too, so you're going to hear a little bit of that. Fortunately, no garbage trucks though. All right, growth rate. Mine grows fast in the warmer months. But again, I'm in Tucson. There's a lot of sun. It's very warm. This plant has gotten very dense. It has a lot of new growth on it. Yours might grow slower. They are, I think they're billed as like a moderate growing plant, but mine grows more moderate to fast. So just depending on what conditions you have it in. And like any house plant, it's going to grow slower or maybe not at all in the cooler, colder months. Exposure. This, like a lot of other plants, house plants, this one does not like direct hot sunlight. Now I have it near an east-facing window. It's a bay window, so it gets lots of nice light. And in the summer months, I move it back away from the window a little bit more. And in the winter months, I move it up a bit. And you might have to do that with yours. So just think of bright light, but no direct light. It would sort of be moderate light. That's what it would be considered. And there are some varieties that have solid, darker green leaves. They don't have tons of variegation. They don't have a lot of color in them. And those can take lower light just fine. I will zoom in on mine soon, but it has a lot of pink variegation in it. And the ones that have the white, the pink, the red variegation, they will need more light. They will do better in more light. Just don't keep it in a hot window because this plant will burn in a heartbeat. Watering! This plant is one that likes to be evenly moist. It would fall under the category of regular water. So I water mine thoroughly once a week in the summer months here. I usually take it outside. Yes, I'm a crazy plant person. I take it outside, I soak it really well, and then I also will water the foliage too, which it seems to appreciate, seeing I'm here in the dry Sonoran desert. So that's what I do with this one. I've done a post called Houseplant Watering 101, a video and a post, and it just tells you some of the factors to consider. Yours might be in a smaller pot. You might be in a cooler climate, so you're going to have to adjust according to your conditions. And in the wintertime, I water it about every 10 to 14 days. As a rule, I do not let this plant dry out. Now, conversely, you don't want to keep it soaking wet. You just have to find that nice spot where it stays evenly moist, not sopping wet. Okay, there are the cicadas. And then the June bugs start flying around too. And the June bugs are these big green bugs, and they love to get in your hair. Just like, ah. And then there's the snakes. Anyway, back to the plant. Temperature. I keep my house fairly warm. I don't like a lot of cold air conditioning. I keep it right at about 80. Plant does fine. As I say, if your home is comfortable for you, it will be so for your plants also. And especially in the evenings, even in the summer and the winter, I keep my house on the cooler side, and I think houseplants actually just prefer that. Okay, so we're going to zoom in so we can see how beautiful the foliage is. That new foliage has a lot of pink to it. As it ages, it just has a little bit of pink in the veining, but it is quite the handsome plant, I think. Okay, so on to humidity. Yes, this plant does love humidity, and that is one of the reasons why I water the foliage each time too. I just think it sort of temporarily ups the ante on the humidity factor. You could also mist it a couple times a week if your home is very dry. I keep mine on top of saucer that has some water in it and rock, so that there is a little bit of water below, but the roots aren't actually touching, the water. But the other thing too, to know about that is that because this plant is so dense, you see how dense the foliage is, there's a lot inside. You want to make sure that your plant dries each time because it is subject to a bacterial leaf spot. So I also put mine out in the rain too, but because it is so dry here, they dry fast. Fertilizing and feeding. It's not really necessary with this plant, but I do worm compost and compost it every spring. I've done a blog post about that for my house plants, so, and a video too. So I will leave the link down below and also in the blog post, so you can read about that. And then, you know, because I am here in the desert where things grow fast and it's hot, I have started to fertilize my houseplants with Eleanor's VF11. And with this one, I do it in the spring and then a couple times in the summer. Any balanced houseplant fertilizer will do if you think yours needs a little boost on the nutrients. Soil and repotting. Not too long ago, about a month and a half ago or 2 months ago, I did a separate video and post on repotting this plant. So I am just going to leave the link for you below and also in the blog post so you can refer to that. So on to pruning. This plant doesn't need pruning too often. You would prune it if you want to propagate it. It's very easy to propagate. We'll get into that very soon. It grows very densely, so some of those lower leaves and the inner leaves will get shadowed out by the outer leaves and they turn yellow, so you have to prune them out. Or if it's just getting too thick and you want to thin it a bit, and if you have a variety that grows a little bit more on the leggy side, you would prune it or tip prune it to keep it a little bit more compact and on the dense side. Which leads us to propagation. This plant is very easy to propagate by stem cuttings. You can either do it in water or you can do it in a light mix like a succulent and cactus mix. And you would just grab one of the stems, you know, the nodes, and there's actually roots that appear off of the stems. You probably are not able to see that because the plant is so dense, but it's like a pothos in that respect. The roots appear off of the stems, making it a snap to propagate. On to pests, P-E-S-T-S. Because this plant does grow densely, it is subject to aphids, spider mites, and mealybugs because they love to hide underneath the leaves and inside. This plant gives a lot of cover for insects to hide out in. So I just check mine every month. Mine has never gotten any insects, but that's another good reason why I like to spray off the foliage. Oh, and I've done posts on spider mites, mealybugs, aphids, all that. So I will leave the links for you in the post so you can identify them if there is ever anything on your plant and take action. So on to pets like cats and dogs. Like most houseplants, this is considered to be toxic. I consult the ASPCA website for my information on that, so I will leave the link in the post and you can see how toxic it is and what it does. And also I have done a post on toxicity, pets and houseplants. I will leave the link to that. It has a video too in the post. And it also has a list of safe houseplants too, or ones that are considered to be safe. Oh, by the way, my plant was growing in a 6-inch pot and I just recently repotted it into an 8-inch pot. So at some point I will probably repot it into a 10-inch pot so it can grow and grow and grow. I'm not 100% how big this variety gets. Bold Illusion, I've never grown it before, so lots of times they won't trail when they're young. They'll start to trail after they get a little bit older, so I'm not sure if mine will start to trail or not, or if it's just going to stay in this nice compact form. Either way, it's fine. And my dad had one of the old school varieties. It was actually not a variety, it's a genus and a species. It was a Syngonium podophyllum. That's the one that really trails. And it can get really leggy and rangy over time, but he grew it on a moss pole or a moss stake. It was actually probably about the stake was about 4 feet tall. We had a greenhouse and he liked to play around with plants and do kind of strange things. I guess that's where I get my love of plants from. Now there are many, as I said, species and a lot of varieties of the arrowhead plants out there. There's more in the illusion series. I think there's a red illusion, a pink illusion. This is bold illusion. So some stay a bit smaller, more compact. Some have more color in them. So I'm sure you can find one that you just love. And if you would like to put your arrowhead plant outside for the summer months, feel free. Just be sure that it is protected from any hot, direct sun. I would not keep mine outdoors here in Tucson because it is so hot. But if you live in a climate that's not as hot, which you probably do, then it's just fine. Just be sure to give it a good spray off before you bring it indoors for the winter time, because you don't want to bring any hitchhiking insects into your house. So I'm just going to give you a few concluding thoughts on this plant that I love. It's really easy to grow. I think so. I figure if I can grow plants here in the desert where the humidity probably today is about 15%, lots of sun, and if it's doing fine, then I'm like, okay. So it's easy. Another thing is it likes bright light, but no direct hot sun, and regular water. So for more details on this plant, be sure to check the blog post with all the words in it. The link to it will be down below. So I hope you have found this video about growing and caring for an arrowhead plant to be helpful. I have a lot more videos coming your way, so stay tuned for those. I appreciate your likes and your subscribes. I thank you very much for them. So now let's get out in our gardens or into our indoor gardens and make our worlds a more beautiful place. As always, I thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye!